a big aha and a very vulnerable position for myself to be in, where bringing you into this really scary world where I had no idea what I was doing, and I'm all about, I want to do it myself, but to be vulnerable enough to open that up, share my truth because I was so upset and shameful as to what I was experiencing, because I shouldn't feel like this, and why don't I remember? Like, I'm fighting that.
From Ontario's personal injury law firm, McLeish Orlando, this is Behind the Suit, a plaintiff's journey.
Okay, hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Behind the Suits, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of the legal world. I'm your host, Patrick Brown, and today we have a very special guest joining us. But before we dive into that, today's episode, let me just introduce McLeish Orlando. We are one of the leading personal injury law firms. We've been providing exceptional legal services and representations for years. If you find yourself or anyone you love in need of assistance, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're here to help you navigate through the complexities of personal injury cases and wrongful death cases. Now let's get back to our guest. In this episode, we do have the privilege of hearing from Siobhan Lacey Chow. And now, Siobhan, I've known for years. She happens to be a past client of mine. I think, and I think many people do think or share what I think, is she's a remarkable individual who has overcome so many tremendous challenges following a crash. And I think she's here today to hopefully empower others and give a little bit of a perspective from a client, this whole area of litigation and being hurt in a crash and going through a process that, in all likelihood, probably was your first time. Is that fair?
Definitely fair, yes.
So before...
Thank you for that, Pat.
You had a crash.
Yes.
I know it was on the Don Valley Parkway.
Yes.
It was a significant motor vehicle crash where you were in your vehicle, you were rear-ended, significant damage. And from there you found out that you had an injury. Mm-hmm. I understand it was a mild traumatic brain injury, along with some physical injuries. All of which had a huge impact on you. And you're going to share a bit of that with us. But up to that stage, had you really been dealing with any lawyers or previous crashes in your past that would give you any indication of what you might be dealing with as you move forward on this?
Definitely not. It was a total wipeout and foreign world. So with deficits to the point of infancy, and navigating that was scary as hell. And coming from where I was, a leader within the corporate industry, tier 1 consumer product goods, we had just secured a big national deal. And now I was navigating that and rolling it out. I was in the knee deep in the launch of my cross-country tour. We had just come back from Banff and training our first group of sales team, and it was supposed to be a month-long endeavor. And after the first week, I come back and I had an epic workout, and I'm on the highway and total wipeout, and the rest is history. And a lot of memory lost, which was also confusing and scary. And then when I was able to start to learn to understand what was happening for me, I like to say, in these moments, it was very selectively choosing and interviewing those and building up my quote unquote chosen family in that moment to armor me up, to help me navigate and educate on this world that I had no idea on.
Yeah, I remember, Siobhan, you're a national account manager,
yes,
high income earning individual, and
yes,
now dealing with this and all the issues that came up surrounding your injury could not be easy. So let's go. How do you get to us? Firstly, what's the process from your perspective on how you got to McLeish Orlando to represent you?
So after the wipeout, I literally, I got to go back to work, but nothing's working. And as the deficits started to really get impacted, because right away I wasn't in a coma or anything of that sort, the injuries started to kick in over time. And with me being that leader within my industry, I had that mindset of mind over matter. We got this. We're going to do this, but nothing's working. And then I lost my ability to speak things stopped working, I use the record player analogy, and that's where the needle doesn't meet the record. So I know this, but I don't know how to get it out. And then on top of that, nothing is working, processing. So people are like, as we're sitting here speaking, you speaking to me right now would be like mumbo jumbo. And I'm like, and then all I could do was cry. There was frustration. There's anxiety inducing, anger out of the frustration of, I've got this personality, type A, leader, bubbly, outgoing personality. And I'm like, it's all gone. What the heck happened? And I don't remember what happened. The last memory I have is being on the highway, rear-ended, the person speeding behind me, and that's it. Car veering a little bit left, and boom, here we are today. So based on some of the information that I was advised of people that were close to me during that time, I had a chosen family member who was also one of my previous bosses, helped me in securing a lawyer, and then realized, wow, this is way bigger than I even imagined. Because I was so focused on, I need to get back to work. I got to get my initiative launched, because I had been working for a year and a half on making that come to fruition. And, 17, 18-hour days, 7 days a week, similar to the legal firm. To go from that to not being able to cognitively process things, not being able to physically move on my own, and essentially walk, talk, and think again. And then that mindset of, okay, one of the things that I'm very good at is research and really, how do I find the leaders and the experts within each industry to help me and support me in navigating and be my advocates? Because right now, I'm not able to advocate for myself, and I also don't understand what's going on, so I also need education on that. And through a lot of support with my circle, we were able to go Siobhan styles, as I call it, and found Pat. And there were two of the top leading law firms in Canada. And I remember Pat came to my home with a number of people. I don't remember how many or who, but I just remember saying to him, if I could go to law school and fight for myself right now, with a stutter, by the way, and nothing's working. So I also thank you for your empathy in that moment, because you sat there and held that space for me so that I could verbally share what I needed to share. And you were able to give me the advice on what I needed to hear in order to make the next best move. I like to use that stairwell approach where, and I can't remember who the individual is that speaks to this, but it's about, based on the information I have in this moment, right here, right now, what is the next best move to get me to the next step in order to get me to my goal? And my goal is I got to go back and kick ass and run the market for this area that I was loving and am passionate about. And so when there's a will, there's a way, as my life motto says.
Firstly, Siobhan, I do remember some of that day in meeting you, and we do have a team approach, so there would be individuals with me. So whenever we take on a case, there's usually two of our lawyers. Two sets of eyes are always better than one. We work together. Of course, as I committed to you, I do the trials and pre-trials and mediations. But we also have other lawyers get court orders, help with discoveries. We have a law clerk that's also involved, and then obviously the accident benefit team, which we have a whole department on. So a number of those individuals do come with me from time to time, so they would probably be there. Part of the thing I remember meeting with you, and I think it's some of the things that you were just mentioning, is it sounded like you were in a lot of distress. Mm-hmm. It sounded like you were an individual also that not only had these injuries, as you describe it, with the needle off the record, mm-hmm. The cognition, the speech, the loss of memory, but also wanted to get back in there. The thing that I think I was sold on in relation to you needing help and us wanting to represent you was you tried. Mm. You were someone that, was very much already trying to get back in there and doing things. And it just wasn't working out for you. Mm-hmm. And it sounded like you're a bit at your wit's end. I know you had another lawyer, and you had mentioned that. And many people think if they have another lawyer, they can't switch. And that's simply not the case. People can switch lawyers anytime, as I would have advised you. But from our standpoint, yeah, we're obviously taking a look at you as a prospective client. As you know, we don't take on every case. I wish we could, but we just don't operate that way. We rather work on the cases that we have and do them well. But I definitely was sold on you in the sense that you needed help. You had a significant injury. Liability wasn't a huge issue. Rear end collision, obviously. But most of all, I like the fact that you were someone that tried. And you didn't come across as litigious. You weren't somebody who had been in multiple accidents in the past. You weren't out there telling me, oh, I just want to make money. And from my perspective, you're a client that we really, really wanted to help. And so, yeah, I do remember that day. I remember meeting you. So you get involved. We come in, we get involved, and off you are. You now got a new set of lawyers. But from you, what did you think in relation to where this process may go? And what was your hope at that time?
To your point, and I appreciate everything that you just shared. Thank you for that, Pat. I am a person that tries and doesn't give up. And when something doesn't work, you got to shift. And thankfully, we connected. To that degree, it was hell bent on, I need to heal. I need to get this better. Whatever this is, like, let's push it under the road. We got to go. We got to get better. And I need your help. How do I do this? What do I do? How do we navigate this? And what's the next best move? Because I got to get back to work. Like, I got an organization that I'm running and I got to be a part of, and a team that needs me. So that was big for me. And I think at the beginning, it was a lot of fighting against my injuries for myself, to the point of I wasn't paying attention to the degree of the impact it had on me, because I was so hell-bent on I need to get back to work. And when I started to learn what was happening for me in that moment and what was going on within my body, and how then, okay, baby steps, taking the concept of launching a product and applying it to my body of, okay, I literally am at an infancy stage here. Let's accept where we're at right now. It doesn't mean I'm giving up. And one of my neuropsychologists, actually, I still have these moments come up for myself through this journey, because I'm still on it, conquering this brain injury along with all the other injuries. Even though you can't see it, that's the beauty of it all is a great opportunity to share my story so that others don't feel alone in the journey, but it's a form of education. And in the collaboration of moving through such an experience and being green to this area.
I think probably in our interview, because I say it to most of my clients, you know, Siobhan, it's better to have your health than a good lawsuit.
Yes.
And part of the role that we certainly, when we come in at the initial stages, is you know, you have what are called accident benefits. These are benefits that were available to you right out of the gate in relation to get you some treatment and help. And obviously that, I'm sure, was new to you as well. Completely. As to the people who provide treatment and rehab in this area with the injuries you sustained. And part of our role, obviously, is to introduce you perhaps to rehab people in the community if you don't already have connections. And the goal for them is to obviously get you better as much as they can and to work with you, but perhaps make you understand some of the expectations of what you may or may not be able to achieve, and how the process will take some time. And I guess from our standpoint as a client, when you first meet this rehab team, what were your thoughts, and can you share anything with us in relation to how they helped you and how that came about?
Initially, for myself, based on my personality, is that inner fight of struggle to accept or realize where I'm actually at. And then from there, the team, it's an extended family, and it's a chosen, because I actively had that power of choice to be able to choose you to have my back and to be my cheerleader and to help me navigate, because you're the expert in this area and I'm not used to that. A big aha and a very vulnerable position for myself to be in, where bringing you into this really scary world where I had no idea what I was doing, and I'm all about, I want to do it myself, but to be vulnerable enough to open that up, share my truth, because I was so upset and shameful as to what I was experiencing, because I shouldn't feel like this, and why don't I remember? Like, I'm fighting that. And to have the guidance of yourself and your team, and there were it was a big team. Again, I think there's about 10 or 15 people, correct me if I'm wrong, that are on my case at that time. And everybody's just all hands on deck. And the minute I have a question, it's like the response less than 24 hours. And which in a moment like that, where there's a lot of anxiety and there's a lot of uncertainty, you were able to provide that and share that for myself and bring me the comfort I needed in that moment. So you're more than just a legal team. You are my extended family, helping me navigate these scary waters and world while educating me in the process of, okay, here's the stage you're at. So to the extent that you mentioned about the rehab team, I had 6 or 7 practitioners, experts, helping support me to build and exercise all of these areas to help put the pieces back together. It's like there's a wabi-sabi is a Japanese phrase where they take the broken vase and they line it together with gold. And you guys are the gold that brought me this wabi-sabi. And I'm still building. And I'm thankful to have that, I can pick up the phone and call you still, even though we've settled one part, that I can have that ability to pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I need some peace of mind on this, or can you help me in navigating? What's the next best move? Or what are the facts? And then from those facts, do I need to do anything, or what does that look like? Because this is your world of expertise, and really surrendering to that experience and allowing you in to be that for me was a big deal for me in my personality type. So I thank you for that. And I know I've shared this with you before, but I have to say it again and let others know. That's another piece that's gotten why we're here today, because it's really important that people understand the intricacies and the support that comes with it. It's not just about going to a courtroom or not, or going up through the different process of it. It's literally hand-holding and holding that space for those that are in. If you're lucky enough to be received in that scenario. And so a big piece of me being where I am today was definitely the guidance through those first few years, especially when abilities are nil. And again, I can't enunciate more the cognitive challenges and impairments, the physical challenges and impairments, and the emotional challenges and impairments. And to be able to have a network that you and your team bring of leading experts that can help me navigate and work towards healing those areas is instrumental to anybody's journey. And it's a journey, and it doesn't stop. Even post-injury or post whatever, I'm getting goosebumps as I say this, like a settlement or what have you, it's a lifelong experience for some. And I know for myself, still conquering a lot of it, there's that comfort that you bring. So meeting all of these people, finding the comfort of I'm on a plan, I've got a schedule, you're helping me develop a routine, and I don't have to think because I don't have those capabilities at this time. It's a matter of finding through my chosen family a way to turn up to these things and just be held by hand through it. And if something doesn't work, because I do advocate through the whole process, as well as even now to another level for myself, to make sure if it doesn't fit my needs or where I'm at, because every brain is different, every body is different. And if it doesn't work for me, I'm able to come to you and have that heartfelt conversation, which is also a difficult conversation. I know for myself it was, and I imagine I'm not alone in that, and it is for many, but that you're able to hold that space for us and to say, okay, that's okay. We got I got a big bag of tricks going, not tricks, but tools in my toolbox. And you were able to open that up and share it with me so that if it's not this person, then I will be able to find the person or people or team that will be able to help me and empower me to move to that next step in my journey.
Yeah, sure. Well, firstly, Siobhan, thank you for all those. You're a great cheering section, but in the sense of what we do. But when we reflect, and everybody on my team and in my firm that's working on these things, will love to hear what you just said, because they do work hard and they don't always hear back how it impacts an individual. So things like this podcast hopefully will be shared with them, and they'll understand a bit of what that means. I think from our perspective, I mean, nobody could really ever understand the shoes that you're in, because you're experiencing an injury that for us, we haven't. Mm-hmm. We haven't been down that road, but we've seen other people. Mm-hmm. And I think over the years, we've learned a bit the rehab people aren't connected to the firm. They're just people that we can make introductions that we know have dealt with people, individuals who suffered trauma. And based on that feedback and what we hear in the community, we know that they're really good. Mm-hmm. And we're happy to make those introductions to people. I know you would have had a multiple number of specialists involved in treating you and moving you forward. But it's nice to hear about them too, and that they do a good job and that they really help you move forward in those initial stages and onward as you move in life. You're mentioning different experts, medical experts, and of course they're involved in the process. And I think all of their goals, and of course ours is too, is to make sure that they get paid. No, I mean, they're not going to work for free.
No.
So that's why we have an AB department, so that the forms can be completed. We have lawyers that can fight the hearings that need to be fought when things are denied, so that you can really make the most of those early years of progression with your treatment. But at the same time, as you're trying to get better, okay, and here you are, you're getting your treatment. A lot of these things have caused you difficulties and problems. I know it. But then at the same time, you've got this lawsuit, with the lawyers involved. And you've got to go to what's called a discovery. I don't know if you remember too much about that.
It's a bit of a blur. What I do know is it is so stressful and so anxiety inducing and so invalidating. And when everything that I'm experiencing is so real, Pat, like, I don't wish it upon anyone to go through this, but if they do, they need to have the right people to help support them through it, because it's a nightmare. I'm not going to sugarcoat. There is no sugarcoating. So to have that peace of mind that through that difficult time, I'm able to surround myself with people that are able to navigate and hold my hand through it.
So let
it's a big deal.
Yeah, and wow, I know you're emotional, and so you should be, because it's a difficult thing to go through. Just so people know, an examination for discovery, what I was asking Siobhan, is a process where the other side, which is usually a lawyer for the insurance company, has an opportunity to, and they're entitled to this, to examine Siobhan under oath and ask her various questions relating to how the crash occurred. And obviously, you can understand the emotional impact when you have to reface this crash again, when you've been trying to deal with it with your treatment team. And then at the same time, they're going to ask you questions about how it impacted your life, the injuries, all the things that you're explaining to us that was going on in your life with your speech and your memory, your cognition, your anger. They ask these questions. And as you can understand, you're a bit of a fishbowl. And it can't be easy for any individual facing all those questions that are so personal, but also rehashing things that you were hoping to forget. And we get the idea that it's difficult. So part of our practice here, and I'll be interested to see what your take is on this. So 3 weeks before, we try to get the client in well before this discovery takes place, send them some information on what it means, but also to prepare them to get ready for it. And did you find that process a bit helpful, even though it was a difficult process, the discovery? Did you find that process helpful?
Again, that's the hand-holding that I'm referring to. So you make it as easy as possible. It's not easy. And every person internalizes it differently. And to your point, I want to bring it back to the memory piece. Like, I didn't remember. So to constantly be faced with that, and it's in front of your face while you're in, the intention is to build and get stronger and get better and heal. And you're constantly being put in, it's an enunciation of you don't remember. And it's like, well, thank you. I don't remember. And then questioning the validity of that, because you cannot see what is occurring inside for me, because it is invisible. I like to call it a vulnerability. The world and society calls it a disability. But you are not able to see what's happening. And I'm in a place where I'm not even able physically to explain what is happening, because I don't have the wherewithal, the ability physically. The brain, the cognition, the record player is not working. So to turn up and even just try to fathom putting that together, it's overwhelming, let alone people asking you all these questions, and even to the point processing and understanding what the questions are. And there's moments where you're turning to your lawyer, I'm like, I don't even know what he's saying. All I hear is blah, 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 blah. Or I hear a couple words and then it goes away.
Lawyers have a tendency to do that.
But at least you're able to hold our hand and say, okay, this is what's, like, you hold that space. And where I'm at in that moment, you can guide me through that. And it's also part of the injury that many don't know what it's like being in the vessel of it. And everybody's is different. So I also have empathy and compassion to understanding that not everybody understands, is another reason why I do what I do to get here today, to have this with you, and what it takes just to get here today, even at this stage in the game of the healing journey. So the memory piece, when you don't remember and also like it's not working, I do recall, as an example to give some perspective, if you're trying to read a book, for somebody that managed multi-million-dollar P&Ls for a living and was negotiating these big contracts with leading organizations, it was very humbling. Also, I did beat myself up at the beginning because I was like, it didn't make sense. Why is this not working? And I was very hard on myself. And I'm learning and still learn compassion and self-compassion, which is a big piece. But that said, looking at a book and I'm trying to read a passage and I read the first word or the second word, and I already forgot what the first word is that I read, and I'm only at the second word. So if you can imagine holding this conversation where we are at today, if it wasn't for all of that support, to what it got me to, we're almost a decade in from the accident, and the anniversary is coming up, and it's a celebration of all the conquering and how hard I worked and you worked, your team worked, and everybody that was in this, just for myself, let alone anybody else out there that's experiencing this, that doesn't get noticed enough. The valiant efforts to turn up each and every day, every moment, to be there and to do the hard work to regain those neural pathways and that regeneration and continue to. And I still come up with moments where it's like, I'll call a lily pad a tadpole and a tadpole a lily pad. And because I built some confidence again, I lost my confidence in those stages. But as I learned to build that muscle again, I can joke about it and laugh about it now in hindsight. But at that time, I would beat myself up. And I didn't know how to navigate. And that's where I would be like, you were like a 911 in those moments too, where it's like, this is happening and I don't understand. There was a person on your team, I remember, and she was so helpful. And I would talk to her multiple times a day because I needed, is this normal? I feel like I'm going crazy. Is this crazy? No, that's totally normal. And I've heard, and she would be able to share a story that was relevant to that. So it brought me comfort in that and gave me another inkling of confidence to be able to take that next step and continue to turn up and be my best self. But learning when you've gotten it all wiped out from you, to build that again, it's like Lego blocks. It's really difficult and really scary. And unless you've experienced, I do not wish this upon anyone, but if you do, you need to make sure you're surrounded by people that are able to lift you up and empower you, hence IMpower. It's a big, big piece that really hits home to my heart.
Yeah. Wow. I know during the process too, obviously, when all these things start happening, you're focusing on your treatment. You've got, lawyers such as myself and the team requiring certain things of you, obviously, as you know, on this case. And I know it's resolved and it eventually settled. And I'm not going to go into what that's settled for. But during the process, you would also saw various experts to provide opinions in relation to your injuries and the MTBI that you had and how that might impact your life. And so you did have to see those experts. And I know, so you've got to see the experts so we can get the medical legal opinions. You're dealing with your treatment and trying to get overcoming what's going on with you. And then you've got these things that we talked about a bit, like the discovery and the legal process. And at this stage too, you're not working. You don't have money coming in.
That was so hard.
Now, on your case, I know that you eventually qualified for CPP, and then you got your long-term disability and your short-term disability, and eventually through the process. receive compensation for some loss of income. But from a financial standpoint,
Yes, this is a big
that's
one.
got to weigh heavy.
So, and I'm glad that you brought that up because this is another piece that I almost became homeless on a number of occasions. I'd say about 8 or 9 different occasions. And I remember this because I would get cut off because they didn't receive a report that they needed. And I was at my wit's end. I am not close with my family. I have my group of chosen family, and thankful for the network that I had based on my career and that I worked so hard and created and built for myself. So thankfully, I had some great humans that were there that I could lean on, including yourself. That said, you weren't able to give me money through this process and I wasn't in a capacity to be able to return to work. And that was a hard pill for me to swallow because I was losing money. Because of the amount, we're not going to get into numbers, but in the role I was in, I was compensated very well for it, but I had earned that and I had worked my butt off and I achieved in a very short time what it takes many decades to acquire within a career perspective. And I'm very aware of that. But that said, to be in this scenario where I'm a single person and I'm living alone and it's me and my dog and I don't know how I'm living paycheck to paycheck, which is foreign to me. I'm like, this is so scary. And how am I going to make my next meal? So to give you an example, this is where I'm thankful for the background that I had and that I'm very aware that many don't have. In this capacity is knowing, coming in from food industry specifically, for your birthday, there's places you can go that give you free items for your birthday. And so I monopolized on that. And then I added my dog into that. My dog's birthday's today. Are we able to? So these are
What's
the
your
little
dog's name?
Bentley. We call him Bentley Boo Boo. He's a 12-year-old. In September 8th is his birthday. He's a 12-year-old Cavapoo, King Charles Cavalier mixed with Poodle. And he was also part of my therapy, I would call it. My snuggler. He had my back and was there through the dark, the real dark. But to not be able to feed him, let alone myself, or how am I going to keep a roof over my head? That was so scary. I'm living in a condominium in downtown Toronto. And it's not cheap because I was used to a lifestyle and a standard of living. And how was I going to make the next month's rent? And thankfully, because of the great networks that I had and the strategics that I could lean on and the people that helped me put the strategics together, because again, that cognitive was not working still at that point. And then learning another level of advocacy for myself and then leaning on you guys. What do we do? How do we get through this? And you helping me navigate that next best move to get that income that is way less than what I'm used to, by far. So it is not, for me to work, I make way more money. And not only that, it's not about the money, but most importantly, my time and energy gets invested in feeding my soul and my passion. And I chose this career because I was so passionate about it and I love it and I love what I do. And to not be able to go back, it's like you're taking my identity away and my career away and my whole purpose away. So not only am I recreating new abilities and regenerating neural pathways and trying my very best to do the best I can each and every moment of every day to get stronger and stronger so I can go back to that. Or try to at least, and then learning down the road that, as much progress as I've made, I've still got so much more to go. That was a big eye-opening experience. So to be able to navigate all of that, and there's the inner emotional side that is a lot. And that's where you lean on the therapy side of things and the neuropsychologies or the neuropsychiatries if needed. And then how to get out of this reoccurring homelessness scenario. And I remember sitting in front of, I was advised, you got to go get your doctor to send this. And you helped me navigate finding fax numbers. I'll never forget this one moment where I literally got to my doctor's office right before they opened and sat there waiting for my doctor to arrive so she could send the fax for the report that they needed because it was fully valid. All of these injuries I was experiencing were fully valid and supported based on all the assessments that were awful, by the way, that I had to go through, and get her to fax that in. And then I'm harassing the insurance company to say, it's in, did you get it? Did you get it? Can you get my money back into the account and get me imagine you're trying to rebuild. You don't have the wherewithal of abilities to do a day-to-day. Like, this is a point, Pat, and I don't know if many know this, but being able to make my own meals or take care of myself. I remember when nurses would come to my door and they'd see me with my walker and they're like, "You're so young." Like, and I don't look the way that I guess people perceive you're supposed to, but what does that even look like? And she would say, "You're my patient?" And I'm like, "Yes, I can wipe my bum and brush my own teeth, but do you want coffee or tea?" So, because you're making it at the end of the day. And so I was proud of the things I was able to do, and I focused on the things that I was able to do. But to shower and be naked in front of somebody that is completely stranger to you.
And I think I want to just touch briefly, like, I think so many people, they get into crashes, they have significant injuries like yours, but they really, perhaps because they've never been involved in this before, understand just how many moving pieces there are. So, I mean, we've already talked about a number of the things about obviously trying to get better, but making sure those people who are trying to get better are getting paid so that they can continue the treatment. And then you're trying to deal with the experts so they can provide opinions to support the ongoing treatment and to make sure that, the people who are paying understand that. And then you've got the income component where you're trying to access income because income stopped, and it could be you've got a short-term disability perhaps from work, which is something that pays you when you stop working. But then that can morph into a long-term disability. That's a different insurance company. That's your long-term disability. And then you've got your CPP disability, which is actually a federal government disability plan that pays people a CPP disability benefit, which actually has to be applied for as well in order to get your LTD. And then on top
very
of
difficult
that,
to get, too.
you've got the lawsuit component. And there's just so many moving variable parts. And I think the hope, and certainly what we try to do, is take care of as many as we can. And obviously we can't take care of everything, and obviously denials, so that you can focus on treatment and moving forward. But obviously that process, I think for any individual going through it for the first time, has to be extremely scary.
And I know you get it now.
I don't think anybody can get it unless they were in your shoes or an individual's shoes who's going through it. So I probably don't fully get it.
No, you don't fully.
I certainly have seen it before. It's not the first time, obviously, where you hear people have to go through those struggles, and you get an understanding of just how that must feel. Anyways, I digress. You got to the end of the tunnel eventually. Now, before you get to the end, and as you've indicated, you're not at the end of the tunnel. It's still going on a bit. But in relation to the lawsuit component, it did come to an end. But that end obviously has a process too, where you hear early on that they think that your case perhaps is not worth much, or they make very low offers. And the process goes on a bit. And I guess from your perspective, perhaps you can share a little bit of what that means to be going through everything you're going through, but then hear, oh, here's what we think your case is worth, or here's the offer, which could be low at the beginning. And maybe you can share a little bit of that and how that might impact you.
Stressful, upsetting, activating, because it minimizes the experience. It invalidates all of the journey to that point. And then I realize, in hindsight, I'm able to say, well, there's the opportunity. There's the golden nugget of education for many, because brain injury is so unique. That said, it was completely invalidating and really hard to sit with, because there is no amount of money in this universe that could make me feel better or take away all of the pain and suffering and heart heartfelt emotion that this journey brought. It tears you up inside. And no compensation or amount of money. So to hear these lowball offers and at the fact where it's like, you can't even fathom that people could have the ability to even put a price on it. But I get that's part of the journey. That's part of the process. That's how the system works. So surrendering to that and really leaning on you guys to say, okay, this is unacceptable. I think that word was a common word used that day because I'm like, this is awful. Because you don't know what you don't know. I get it. You can't see what's going on, but there's no way you can put a price on it. It is, and no amount of money in the world will make it better. For me, at least. And even today, like, it hasn't even put a dent. I know I'm a very high achiever. I'm a very self-motivated individual. I know who I am. I learned and had to recreate from scratch again and continue to through the vulnerabilities, and thankfully still have a team in place that I lean on to help me through that and remind me each and every day that it's okay and that accepting where you are at today is still okay. It doesn't mean you're giving up. And it feels like, for myself, because of that motivated spirit that I am and that go-getter that I am, it really impacts that. And so sitting in front of a room of these leading experts with all these beautiful degrees from all of these amazing universities and what have you, to society's terms, telling me my worth, no. Nobody has that right, especially after all that I've conquered and continue to conquer. Unacceptable. So no, Pat, there is no amount of money that is going to make it okay, ever. But knowing that at least I have a team that has my back, will advocate because they know the lingo and I don't, or else I would have gone to school to learn how to do it. Didn't have the wherewithal at that point. And I remember my ex-husband, who was in that room with us the day that I met you, he was blown away that even with the lack of abilities and the stutter and the not making sense, that I was still able to say, like, if I could go back to school and fight for myself right now, I would, because I struggle with trusting others when it comes to advocating for myself, because I know myself, no one else does. And like, to your point, well, yes, you know, but you don't know what it's like. You know the process, you know, you have the access to the network, which is what I found comfort in. And I know it's leading, expert, and well-renowned and recognized year over year for over a decade now. And I celebrate that with you and your team and the organization. There's a reputation that you've built, and on purpose and for a reason, because your access to your world too takes a lot to be able to, I imagine, trust in bringing in the plaintiffs that you do. Is it plaintiffs? Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Plaintiffs that you do. Because I am legitimate and I have no idea of this world, but I did learn through hearing and why things were so difficult that there are a lot of illegitimate out there, which is why it makes it so difficult for the legitimate. And that's a really hard pill to swallow when you're fighting for yourself. You have this team that is fighting for yourself, and then people are trying to tell you your worth. No way, Jose. Nobody has that power. And and so knowing that the team is there to have my back and to advocate for me in the best way that they could and assert themselves so that we can get the most value. But at the end of the day, it's not about the dollars. For me, it was, and that was very, very hard to go through and listen and be in a room. And it's not, we're talking like, we had 2 days, I think, on different occasions. And my God, it took me like 3 weeks or 4 weeks to recover just from that experience. And I know the emotional side is one, but the physical symptoms that I still was dancing with and navigating through were very vivid and very alive. And of course, it's going to enunciate it and exasperate it. And giving myself what I needed, that was one thing I learned of the many things I've learned and tools that I've developed is identifying what I need and being able to ask for it, and take care of myself in those moments, the self-love, the self-compassion. But there's no way, and no one can prepare you for that.
Sure. You're mentioning like a lot of it. And I mean, there is obviously in personal injury and insurance claims, a lot of illegitimate claims, and you definitely never were. It's funny, I don't know if you remember probably the 3 things I told you that I expect from you, because I don't expect a lot from our clients, but I think the firm itself would share this with any potential new client. Obviously, be honest. That's the first thing and you were honest throughout. And number 2, to try, which you were someone who tries to follow up the treatment that's recommended to try to get better. Much better to have your health than a good lawsuit. And as well, report your symptoms on a regular basis. Those are big expectations. And most clients, and almost all clients, follow that as best they can. But let's go on a more positive note. You've gone through this journey. We still keep in touch, and I know that you're still doing amazing things. So tell us a little bit about Siobhan now and what she's up to.
So Siobhan now is still conquering. Definitely gained some abilities, and definitely not at a capacity where I was or what I'm used to. That said, I'm doing the best I can. And my biggest thing is, how can I make this journey, sharing my story, how do I serve and give back to the community, and to globally in a way that can educate this area, as well as realizing through this the art of empowerment. And my personality is also a piece that I know has been a big instrumental part to the success I've had so far. And I created this brand called IMpower. So IMPOWER, Empower. And when I'm able to, the beauty of this is I do it at my own pace. It feeds my soul. So the one area around the 8th year mark, I realized is like, I really have a huge void in my heart because I loved what I did in my career, and it fed a huge part of my soul. And while I learned that it's not my identity, at that time, it was my identity. In hindsight now, I am my own person, and that was a great thing that I was very good at doing. So taking and finding that quote unquote life's purpose while still conquering. And what does that even look like? So I started reflecting on how I got to where I am and realized, okay, there's so much opportunity here and so many golden nuggets, as I mentioned earlier. How can we feed those golden nuggets for others so that the journey doesn't have to be as challenging? It's challenging regardless, but is there a way that we can make it easier? Is there a way that sharing my story can bring insight and enlightenment to those that have no idea, like yourself? And every brain, every body is different. And the only way that you will be able to, or anybody is going to be able to understand what that really feels like. You'll never have that full, and I am thankful for that. You don't have to go through a brain injury to gain an aha or a light bulb to go off or to hear this messaging, but it's the power to create the life that you choose because you can. So I'm going through all of this crud, but I turned up every day for myself and I fought for myself. I had a team that fought for me and I surrounded myself with that, and it got me to where I am and continues to get me where I am. And if it wasn't for that, I don't know where I'd be. I know that my personality is definitely a driving factor. And so I celebrate that and share that, hence the intention of being in a situation like this today of, Pat, thank you for doing what you've done for me. Now, how can I give back to you and your community? Because I've learned so much and I continue to learn so much, and you've done so much and helped me so much in this awful, but wabi-sabi, Ouroboros crack me wide open moment and journey in my life. And what can we do to shift things for others, make it easier for others, is that if possible, or just educate and enlighten. And as I said, you don't have to go through injury to the degree I did in order to realize that for yourself. So it's, how do we maximize the reach? How do we maximize the impact so that it can be easy, suffering in the world can be less and we can bring more love into it.
Listen, Siobhan, I'm telling you, right now, I'm learning so much from you. You're so complimentary in relation to the firm and us, but some of the things that you share, like turn up for yourself every day. I mean, these are inspirational things that help anybody, whether they're going through a brain injury or whether they're just going through any life struggles. And we're so thankful that you've opened yourself up a bit today to share some of that experience with us, but also to teach us some techniques that people can use to help them move perhaps what's a difficult time. And I know you're giving so much back on the community. I know that you've volunteered in the past for BIST, and I know that you've had other volunteer opportunities where you donate, try to make it easier for other people. And I know that you're continuing to do that.
Where I can. The struggle is consistency. It's very difficult with the symptoms that I still dance with, as I like to call. To be able to be consistent is, again, that piece of accepting where I'm at, being okay with that, surrendering to that, but knowing I'm not giving up and that I'm still training and working harder and trying and turning up every day. When there's a will, there's a way. But at the end of the day, it doesn't mean that, like, it's a constant journey and work in progress. So, although, yes, as we've talked about, I'm donating my time where I can. I would love to be consistent one day. We're not there yet. Who knows? But at the end of the day, all I can do is do the best that I can. And the goal at the end of the day is to serve up all the gifts that I've been given in this experience and continue to, and give back to those that have really held me up during the darkest times of my life.
Well, you certainly served up a lot of gifts today, and thank you so much, Siobhan, and thank you so much for sharing and helping others move forward with what you had to go through. And I know that the journey continues, but we sincerely wish you all the best, as we always will. That really brings us to an end to this episode Behind the Suit.
I want to say thank you to you, not to cut you off, but thank you for having me today. Thank you for all that you've done and the immense impact that you've had on my life. Thank you and the McLeish Orlando family for all that you've done.
I'm going to end off on that. Thank you so much, Siobhan.
Who are still listening now, if you have any questions about personal injury or a case you may or may not have, we're always happy to speak with you. You can reach us at 1-866-685-3311, or you can send us an email at info@mollp.com. Take care. Bye for now.